in Rockaway, if you are in Queens, in the Dominican community, Washington Heights, all of you have that power to fuel us. We are so divided right now, and we're missing the beauty of our diversity. We have all of this division of who we are, where we go to worship, what do we wear. No, today we take off the intramural jersey and we put on one jersey, Team New York. So New York City, brothers and sisters, and I just need to pause for a moment because it's so important for me to do this. 5 people I must acknowledge, and I'm going to acknowledge all of you within time, but there's 5 people I must acknowledge. First is my sister, Ingrid Martin. Where's Ingrid?
Eric Adams there, giving a victory speech. Kristen, we were talking about that earlier. I do think he is going to be a more and more familiar name to people nationally, not just because he's the mayor of New York City, of course, means cameos in your favorite New York City-based TV shows, right?
Right.
But I think he must be a player in national politics.
I think he might be, and he is one of the people who's shaping the debate around policing, which is one of the issues that we've been talking about, that we've been thinking about. And this is someone who's a former police captain who has said that he wants to give more resources to the police department there in New York. And so I think he's one to watch. There you heard him talk about the fact that we are so divided, really making the point that he wants to be a mayor who helps to bring that city together against the backdrop of a lot of divisions, Chuck, not just in New York, but all across the country.
I watch Eric Adams here, and the one potential star candidate I think Democrats have so far for the 2022 cycle is Val Demings, also a former police officer.
Interesting point.
African-American woman who I think can talk about this crime issue with some interesting credibility in a way that Eric Adams did and was able to have sort of change the conversation. It's just something to think about.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.
Welcome to the Gilchrist the Gilchrist Experience. Today's guests, Graham Weatherspoon and Julian Hemmings, and our topic is Eric Adams, our new mayor. Fascinating. We've got a lot to think about, what we can do with this fair man. He's a fair man. He's one of us. He's a true brother. And Graham, this is a personal friend.
Yeah.
A soldier. You two spend time together forming, what was it, 100?
100 blacks in law enforcement who care.
Wow.
Who rode shotgun with Jesse back in the day?
With David
Protect him
Dinkins,
against Reverend Sharpton?
Reverend Sharpton, the family of Sean Bell, his parents.
Eric, when you went through it was a meeting at NAN on potential candidates for mayor, and he mentioned 100 blacks in law enforcement who care. Were very instrumental in making him feel safe.
Well, 100 Blacks was organized by the Transit Police Department. Well, not by the Transit Police, but by members of the Guardians Association of the Transit Police. And that was in 1994, if I remember correctly. And it was organized as a separate entity not linked to the Transit Police Department. The members were from the Transit Police Department and other law enforcement agencies, city, state, and federal. We never divulged any information of who our members were other than the ones that you saw in the press conferences. We had contacts within police headquarters. We had contacts in the mayor's office, city council, state legislature. and, as I said, in federal law enforcement agencies. So I know one of the things when Ray Kelly was commissioner, he wanted to know, he asked me in a meeting in his office, well, who are your members? I said, that's none of your business.
And why was this organization formed?
It was formed to address the critical needs, not only in policing, but in the black community.
Right.
And how they were to be addressed by the police departments. I remember we had one scenario where a black sergeant was shot in the back in Brooklyn, in the Clinton Hill area.
What year?
Ooh. Howard Safer was the mayor, so it was around 1999, 2000.
Crime rate?
It was a drug bust, but the thing was that the sergeant was shot by one of his own men in the commotion of breaking in and getting into the apartment. And what happened was the suspect fled, and he was pursued down the street, and he fell, and he was shot by an officer standing over him. Now, DCPI, which is the Deputy Commissioner of Public Information, they're the ones that disseminate the information to the press.
Right.
So they said that the sergeant was shot by the perpetrator, and the perpetrator was shot by the officer. So we did a press conference the next day, and I had a blow-up of the Daily News article, and there's no fault to the Daily News. They were giving the information that was given them by the Deputy Commissioner. Our press conference was to expose the lie being presented by NYPD. And we told Howard Safer, if he didn't get this corrected in the morning, we'd be back at City Hall in the morning to break the entire story of this homicide down to the city.
Was it racism involved with it?
There's racism everywhere.
Of course.
You know, in trying to get the job, I was met with racism at the door.
Whoa.
So for anybody to say, oh, we don't have racial issues, they're lying, all right? And anybody that believes that is stupid.
Well, you joined it in the 70s.
In the 70s, but it's no different whether it's the 70s or 2021. The racism is still there.
It's gotten a little better, no? Except for Trump enhanced it.
Forget about Trump. You have to
can't
know what
forget about
racism
that.
is and be able to recognize it. And if you don't know how to recognize it, you'll always be in a quandary. It's not about sitting down at a lunch counter and having a cup of coffee with a white person. That's not, you're not dealing with racism.
So true, so true.
Our young folks they try to get the job.
Why you shortchange that?
They try to get the job.
A lot of people got beat up.
And from the time they get in there, there's a systemic plan to eliminate them.
Yep.
Understand this. They have federal laws with regard to hiring, you know, blacks, Latinos, women. So if they have to hire a woman, they'll hire a black woman before they'll hire a black man.
Right.
And black women need to understand this too. Don't think you're all that, queen. No. There's a reason why they're going to hire you. Number one, if they hire you, that's two black people they don't have to hire. They don't have to hire a black man and then turn around and hire a black woman. So they hire a black woman and they fill those two slots.
Wow.
Let's look at the math. All right? Number two, the reason why they'll hire a black woman, it's not about your qualifications. It's about the fact that you are a female. And they're not going to expect that you're ever going to challenge them in any way because you are female. You're going to go along to get along, for the most part.
Well, black women are making up for all that because you see all these new officials being.
We're seeing some
elected
advancement now.
black women.
We are, but
We've got a black woman as vice president.
yes, we do. But
We
let's
have a
see.
woman of
Let's
color
see
become
what
mayor
happens
of
in the next
Boston.
election. All right? Let's see what happens in the next election. Because if the Democratic Party, which is in total disarray right now, doesn't get itself together, they're going to get wiped out.
Well, we're all going to get wiped.
I mean,
Right.
Virginia got it.
Democrats,
Virginia.
so-
Yeah.
Virginia and New Jersey. There were two states they lost last night. Two. And the Democrats, you
Why?
got this jerk, this hillbilly, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Wait, Officer Graham. So New Jersey's Republican now?
Yeah. Well, it's not officially
It'll be a
official.
while before they figure it out.
Yeah, it's very close, but he could
they
lose
gotta-
it. So, and a lot of the backlash to Trump brought about Democrats getting elected. A lot of Republicans who did not care for Trump decided to vote and back a Democratic candidate. Now that he's not involved, they're going back to the Republican Party. So we have to watch this.
True.
But the Democrats, these people in Congress, these progressives and whatever they want to call themselves, they need to realize that they're screwing the party because they're not working as a cohesive unit. And in such, when the next election comes, they could be out. But let me get back to the police department.
I think about after this election, or yesterday, shocked everybody. I think the Democrats almost have to get themselves together.
They must.
And we got to help them.
They must.
Black people, I'm talking. Black people put Joe Biden in office.
Well, he needs to do what he needs to do because it's
And
not
we need
about
to
trying to
help
reach
him.
across the
We
aisle.
need to help them.
All right? You're not reaching across the aisle to anybody. There's nobody over there
gotta
that's going to
try.
respond. He already tried. He's wasted
All right.
the year. He's got to move on.
Well,
And
what happened now?
Granted,
The last couple of months, we've been fighting amongst. It's Joe Manchin.
that's the point I'm saying.
Let's bring it up the fact
the
that
Democrats
Joe
are
Manchin
self-destructive.
and Sinema are the problem.
But I
Two
think,
Democrats
my thing is,
posing as Democrats.
but like my idea behind it is, the issue is no longer reaching across the aisle. The Democratic Party has moving so far to the right, and you have some people moving so far to the left, and has had this really great term being an umbrella party, that they've been so open in who they're letting into the party, there is no real ideology keeping them together. So what's happening is that, what they're more concerned about is saving seats, but you can't win an election without having an idea. But any kind of stance,
What
any
about
kind
the
of
ideas
idea.
that Joe Biden's trying to pass now?
No, but the thing is, it's not just about the presidency. You have the Senate races. They have their constituents they have to match up to. So they might personally agree with Joe Biden's agenda, but they can't bring it to their conservative constituents. So they bring it to them, and they have to do what they have to do to stay in office, right?
The idea is that we have to work together like the Republicans work together.
But the Republicans
But
have
evil.
the Republicans have some kind of policy ideas. We don't have any policy
Well, they have
ideas.
policy ideas.
Yes.
What, lie and cheat and steal?
They do. No, I mean,
That's their
that's not it.
policy ideas.
Lower taxes, smaller
Trump,
government,
You're saying always forget
immigration.
about Trump. The effects of Trump for 4 years.
But Trump had some kind of policy ideas.
No, he didn't have his policy. What? Don't tax the rich. That's what his
at least
policy
that's a
was.
policy.
And he got it across.
What
got it across.
policy do we have as Democrats? Well, not we. What policy do Democrats have?
You should be telling me.
Well, he's trying to figure it out. We're all trying to figure this out because
What
you got
about-
what's her name?
AOC.
AOC. Freshman congresswoman comes in with other freshmen, and they're puffing up their chests, ranting and raving, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And they're trying to tell Pelosi, we're not having this. You need to shut up.
we're going to...
You're a freshman coming in. Come in and learn the system. You're not coming in and change something just because you got there. Yes, you got elected. You've got to learn the system. When you come into a new job, you don't run around like you know what's going on. And you don't talk about, we're going to do this, and you're showing, they showed to the nation the fractions within the Democratic organization from day one. From day one. That never should have happened. No, nobody is perfect, and nobody has all the answers on a given political situation. But you don't come in day one making demands and talking about we're not having this and you're not doing this and we're going to take you down and you're going to go. It's a joke. And the Republicans sit back and say, that's chaos. All right, so let's work on their chaos. And that never should have happened.
What about what Trump did? You remember any of it?
Trump
Yeah.
was the president. He wasn't a congressman.
But so,
Well, he influences everything.
but look at the victory of Eric Adams, right? We just look at the Mayor Adams, excuse me. We just saw the commentators talking. They talked about him discussing police reform, him discussing crime reform. I mean, like, there are real ideas that he's gaining that people could be like, oh, I'm voting for him for that reason.
And he's a
Wha-
Democrat.
Not just that. I mean, I think people, I don't
All
think
those
it's.
policies are Democratic policy.
No, I mean, there's a conversation about.
Voting rights,
Yeah,
police
but,
reform.
great point. But is Joe Manchin talking about that?
Is the Supreme Court talking about voting
That's
rights?
That's President Joe Biden's policy you're talking about. But I'm talking about, okay, we got voting rights. What are some of the Democratic Party's ideas, and how can they promote these ideas? How can they market them to the American people? Because the typical voter doesn't really understand what the Democratic Party believes in at this point.
You as a youth should be coming back telling us older people what the policy
No, I mean, but that's.
He's
but I'm,
asking, what is the policy?
Yeah, you just gave a great answer, Mr.
Build back
Gilchrist.
better. That's a policy.
That's true. But Manchin and Sinema were so far against it that it's been
Well,
gutted
they're
so
scheming.
much.
They're being paid off by the oil policies
Right,
and cinemas with the pharmaceutical
right.
people.
So
That's
you have.
right.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm not. I'm just agreeing. I'm agreeing.
Yeah, this is what the problem is. They're supposed to be Democrats, but they're Republicans in disguise. Or they're getting paid off.
But what
That's
does
all.
it mean to be a Democrat then? That's kind of what I'm trying to figure
I
out.
think, for me, it's fair-mindedness.
I know, but what does it look like in terms of a policy? Like, what does that look like, being fair-minded? Because I know what it means to be a Republican.
Police reform,
But what does that, you know what I'm saying? Republicans, like some Republicans agree with police reform.
child care,
But the Democrats were not
all the
for the
socialistic, they call them
Yeah.
socialism, but it's taking
that's
care
a
of
term.
your family.
That's a term that is supposed to have pejorative effects. People say socialism as opposed to capitalism. Capitalism is about greed and lust.
Yeah,
People don't understand that this country is well founded in socialism.
Yeah.
that's it.
Well founded in socialism. Because if it wasn't, a lot of the people out here wouldn't have a place to stay. Social Security was a Democratic program brought about by FDR 75, 80 years ago. The highways, I worked for a company years ago, and we worked on the Northeast Corridor for the highways of the United States.
Yeah.
It was a Republican president,
Eisenhower.
FDR, that brought about the interstate highways.
Eisenhower
Right. So
in the 50s,
those roads are federal roadways.
right?
That's socialism.
And what's Biden trying to do now?
He's trying to improve the
Infrastructure is socialism. Healthcare is socialism.
Yeah.
All right? All of these things are socialism. It's not political. It's humanitarian.
That's that.
These are the things that make sense.
Democratic policy.
Right? So we need to understand, people need to think Republicans throw out terms as though it's supposed to be something negative.
Bad.
And they drive that point. The Democrats don't drive a point. They don't even have a hammer to hit the nail. Push your agenda. Don't sit around waiting. And Obama did the same thing when they were doing the health care. The Republicans ran a program. Oh, we're just going to have these death things, and they're going to kill grandma. And then he let that run for 3 or 4 weeks before he opened his mouth. Biden should have gotten on the trail after having seen what Obama went through. He should have got on the road the moment this bill was ready, and he should have been moving around the country talking to the people about it, to all those little hillbillies in West Virginia who don't even, and you have counties in states that don't even have one hospital in the county. I can't remember where it was. A congressperson was saying, we don't have any hospitals in these 3 counties. The only hospital was at a military base.
Yeah.
And these are the fools that are voting against health care. I've always had health care. I didn't need Obama for health care. My mother, we had health care as children growing up. We had Blue Cross Blue Shield. We didn't need health care. We had it. But
How did you get it?
we had it. My mother worked for the city.
Ah, okay. That explains it.
She worked for Macy's before she worked for the city, and she had health care when she was working for Macy's.
Government health care is not too
Back-
bad.
All right?
But that
So-
was a year
And that was in the 50s.
Yeah,
My
well-
mother had health care. We had health care.
Well, this is more of a socialistic. See, people
this
today
is to
don't
improve-
understand what government did for us back in those days.
That's the point.
That's the
But you got
That's
to.
the point.
But the thing is, I think okay. So there are 2 points. So the first point is, I think we have to kind of like. So the reason why Republicans are winning the debate is because they're using words like socialism and capitalism. We're just trying to. I think people need to look at it like, let's stop dividing these two functions, and let's just start thinking about them as a singular function, which is improving the lives of people, because you need capitalism to innovate. I mean, you do. But when I think about, like, what you were talking about with the hillbillies in Virginia, because Joe Biden and Democrats are not having an aggressive marketing campaign, that's why we lost the governorship there. And it's going to be reminiscent about what's going to happen in the future. I think if the Democrats aren't managed to save the Senate in 2022, it's a miracle. I don't even think it's possible at this point.
If these issues around abortion now and the law they passed in Texas.
Yeah, it's becoming way too partisan.
And we've talked before, this Attorney General, I think he's asleep at the switch. He is going to address the issue of abortion.
Yeah.
And the Supreme Court is going to question it. Why aren't they talking about voting rights? Why hasn't Biden gotten up? Why didn't he jump up from the giddy up about these voting laws restricting people's rights to vote? All right? The clock is going backwards here. And by the time they start moving on this, it'll be too late, because you have a midterm election coming up in less than a year.
Yeah.
And now, as court proceedings go and delays, they won't have a definitive answer on the voting rights of people. When the guy, Kemp, in Georgia, pulled that stunt to deprive Stacey Abrams of the seat, it was Martin Luther King's cousin who was told she couldn't vote. And she was voting when Kemp was 2 or 3 years old. So here is Martin Luther King's cousin. They thought, oh, we don't have your number here. You can't vote. We don't have your name. And she's not the only one.
Does she have a lawsuit on that?
I don't know.
She does.
But well, then good. That's what she should have. That redistricting, New Orleans, a black city, doesn't have control of that district that they live in, because they pieced off all sections of the city to a larger white community.
So, Officer, let me ask you this.
Gerrymandering, yes.
Can I ask you this question, Officer Graham? So let's say we were able to solve the voting rights issue. And
we have to.
Right? But does that necessarily mean that we're going to have a pool of votes? We have a bunch of young people that have the ability to vote, that they don't go out there and vote.
Well, we have to get them to vote.
So I'm saying when we get people to vote, this is what happened with the Joe Biden presidency. You had a mass of black people, you had a mass of young people going out there to vote, but they're not seeing reforms in policies. I know that it's a long time.
Don't you understand what's happening?
But you have a lot of people going out there to vote.
Blocked.
What's the responsibility of the politicians, though?
250,000 people voted in the mayoral election yesterday. 250,000 people in a city of 8+ million people. No, everybody can't vote, but there are certainly more than 250,000 people who could vote. And that doesn't mean everybody even registered to vote.
Exactly.
Who's not voting?
Well, you're asking me? I was on 125th Street this week, day before yesterday. I was on 125th and Malcolm X, myself and about 25, 30 other brothers, handing out material, talking to people. All right? A lot of people tell me, I'm not voting, not voting. I said, make sure you don't complain. When things don't go for you, keep your mouth shut. Don't complain.
That's right.
All right? The drug trade is operating on the southeast corner. The heroin is moving. The crack is moving.
Yeah.
You know, if I was working, I could have made 25 or 30 arrests there. People, it was like the 1960s on the southeast corner of 125th and Malcolm X. That's how bad it is. And I'm looking at people that look like they're in a time warp. Because you remember how Harlem looked back in the day. That corner hasn't changed.
Wow.
And it's like a safety zone for the junkies. But a lot of people, young people that could vote, no, I'm not voting. Let me tell you.
They don't register.
The welfare mentality that people have is going to be the ruination of them.
But we've got to make them aware
That's
of
so true,
what damages they're doing to themselves and everybody else around.
Right. Because they're not going to have
that should be
options.
the purpose of this program, to encourage people, especially our own people, to vote for everything. The door catcher.
Right.
Let me play this other piece on Who's our new mayor?
Eric?
Eric.
Well, he'll be the mayor in January.
Running
Mayor-elect.
item 2. Would you?
Great points.
And we're missing the beauty of our diversity. Today, we take off the intramural jersey and we put on one jersey, Team New York.
That was Eric Adams, who CNN projects will become the next mayor of New York City. He won a decisive victory last night in that heavily Democratic metropolitan area. Joining us is New York City's mayor-elect, Eric Adams. Congratulations to you, sir. What does this victory tell you?
It tells me that while others were attempting to be heard by New Yorkers, I wanted to be felt. I wanted to give my narrative, my story, not talk about my glory of being a former captain, a state senator, a borough president. I wanted people to know my story, being a dishwasher, having a learning disability, being arrested as a child, going to school at night, working in a mailroom. That was the story I wanted to send New Yorkers, and they felt me, and because of that, I'm now going to become the mayor of one of the greatest cities on the globe.
What lesson do you think Democrats around the country can take from your victory?
Practical is progressive. Practical is progressive. I am progressive in my policies. When you go online and see my 100 steps forward for New York City, you see how progressive I am. But we have to be practical. Let's not talk about closing our jail building when we leave the pipeline that feeds the jail open. 55% of our prisoners have a learning disability. Why aren't we talking about that? We can't talk about housing when we're not dealing with affordable and real housing for middle and low income New Yorkers. We have to deal with public safety. When you talk about disbanding police departments when crime is increasing, you're not being progressive because you're not dealing with the safety of people who are impacted by that. So let's be practical and progressive, not preach to people, but provide services to people.
There have been critics who say that the National Democratic Party right now is suffering from runaway wokeness. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think it's imperative that we have a discussion, we debate, we have conversations pre-election. But once that election is over, post-election, you have to become a GSD elected, get stuff done. You have to get stuff done. And the reality is to continue to debate after the election is just a failing solution for the people on the ground. And we can't, I say this over and over again, can't be so philosophical and theoretical that we just simply giving out and throwing out terms instead of looking on the ground what people need. And that's what I'm hoping the party that I love, the Democratic Party, realize we must get back on the ground and impact the things that are important to people.
Let me ask you a few things about the city, which you will be running soon enough. There's a vaccine mandate in place for police officers and firefighters. Will you keep that in place?
Well, right now, we have one mayor, and I was clear on that, but I'm going to encourage the mayor, what I stated on the last few days of the campaign trail, speak with the unions. I reached out to some of the union leadership late last night, and they stated that, Eric, we want to sit down. We have not been able to sit down with the mayor. Listen, they're the credible messengers. If we're going to get through this COVID crisis, we get through it by communicating with the credible messengers to speak to their rank and file. I hope the mayor, and I am encouraging him to do that, to sit down with the unions, come into a resolution. And if he doesn't, if this is still going to January, I'm going to sit down with them, and we're going to get this resolved. We have to defeat COVID and make sure we don't have crime turn in our city.
Well, they're on unpaid leave, the ones who have not been vaccinated. Don't they have a right to know if they might be able to get paid as of January 1st or whenever it is your inauguration day is? I mean, at this point, you are mayor-elect, so there's one mayor-elect. You could tell them what their situation will be in January. Yeah,
but look what that does. It says to the mayor, I handcuff him to be able to sit down and negotiate a solution. If you know when you sit down at the table that no matter what happens, you're going to not have to deal with what the current mayor stated, that is unfair. I would not want someone to do that to me as a mayor, and I'm not going to do it to this mayor. Here's an opportunity for him to bring about a resolution, and when I inherit this situation, I'm going to bring about a resolution.
You talked about.
See, I played this to show you what kind of fair-minded person we've got now.
Yeah.
And an office that here's a guy who struggled with with learning disabilities. They call him a dummy in school because he couldn't capture things.
Yeah.
He had a dyslexia.
Dyslexia. He was dyslexic.
You know, and
So,
I'm
you know,
getting retarded the older I get.
Eric
But
told
let
us
me
his
finish
story.
about Eric.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I see Eric as an example of what you can become, no matter what your problem is. And here's a man a black man in America, struggling like we all have, and his vision of what he could become was nothing when he was a kid. They told him he would never be anything. And he overcame that by learning what his problem was. He had a learning disability. And once he learned that, he was on the dean's list. Now, what uplifted him? What changed him? Now he's in a position to deal with everybody fair. See what a fair person he is? How he dealt with this mayor on, a lot of politicians would say something different than what he said. Some, they might dodge the question or they bob and weave around. He said, "Look, I'll give the mayor, when I'm in charge in January, I will do something to end it all."
The
But
situation may not be
the
there.
commentator was looking to pick a fight,
Right.
looking to see what kind of character he was. Now, that alone shows you what kind of man we've got in office. And one of the things I saw, and when his acceptance speech, he got on his knees. And thank God. That was one of the first things he did before he started to speak. So we've got a real man in the house.
I've known Eric for 30 some odd years. Man, more than 30 some odd. Closer to 40 when he was a rookie cop back in '84. And what we did with the young officers, we sat them down and we showed them the roadmap.
He was a rookie while you were.
Yeah.
You were there longer than
Eric
him.
was 10 years behind me.
Ah,
And
yes. Wow.
the thing is, he sat down and he listened. All right? He can handle a reporter because with 100 Blacks, that's what we did. We did press conferences.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the thing that people have to understand, especially young people listening. You don't simply arrive at this level without having put in the work.
That's right.
People will tell you. Eric told us his story at a fundraiser in Bed-Stuy some months ago. We were in tears.
Yeah.
You've heard the tertiary things. But what he went through as a child, what his mother went through as a child to be washing and cleaning people's homes. And her own friends and neighbors telling her, "Oh, take a look around. You're not getting a house. Where you are is where you're going to be till the day you die." But she was going out cleaning houses and saving her money and then was able to purchase a home while her friends were laughing in her face, let alone other people. And she went to the closing. And when she got to the closing, the attorney at the closing was one of the people whose houses she was cleaning.
Wow.
I love that.
And he asked her, "Mrs. Adams, what are you doing here?" "Oh, I'm the client. I'm buying the house." He said, "You're buying a house? Like hell you are." And he said, "You're fired."
Oh, wow.
What?
He fired Eric's mother right there. The audacity. You got the nerve to buy a house because the money he was giving her helped her to buy a house? Wow. He told her, "You're fired." In an attempt to stop this black family right there at the door.
Yeah.
And Eric went through this. We were all standing there weeping as he continued with the story. Young folks, you don't become successful because you're sitting around thinking somebody owes you. Nobody owes you a damn thing.
That's right.
Nobody.
That's right.
I don't care what your story is. I don't know what your hardship is. You have to work for it.
True.
That's it.
I watched my father dying when I was 4 years old. That's no excuse for not succeeding. This welfare mentality has been driven into our people. Section 8, welfare, food stamps. You have to get an education. You have to apply yourself and fight to get it. And get beyond this basketball BS and pro sports.
True.
Well,
True.
Yeah.
That's modern day slavery.
True.
You have to fight. You have to. Eric spent over 30 years to get here. All right? People say, oh, you were a detective. I want to become a detective. You have to put in your time. There's no guarantee of becoming a detective. They are selected.
Graham,
So-
everybody has to get their way.
This is what I'm saying.
Well,
Everybody
stop
has to
knocking
put in.
sports. That's what,
There's
stop
more.
knocking
There's
welfare.
more in life.
Some
I know about
people
sports. Jackie
need-
Robinson was my cousin. You don't need to tell me about pro sports.
Why, you
I have other
keep saying
cousins in
there's
pro
something wrong.
basketball and football.
Well, it's not.
And
it's
at
not
WNBA.
slavery.
But
We
that
have
is
to
not
work
where
with it.
black people need to concentrate their focus.
You work with what you got.
You don't know what
Whatever
you've
it
got
is.
until you get out the neighborhood and start
If
looking
it's
around.
football,
There are a lot of things.
You work it and you invest your
Winston,
money.
We need people to solve problems.
We need people.
We don't
to-
need entertainment. We have
we
serious
do.
problems. Entertainment
we
is
do.
fine,
Everybody's
but
got
we don't
certain-
need to
We
focus on
over-index. We
feeling good.
over-index in those things.
All right? And we need to understand the traps that are put out there for our young people. We need to develop our minds. If you're going to do pro sports, you need to know the business of pro sports.
True.
My friend's son wanted to be a ball player. I said, no, you're going to do business of sports. You're not running up and down the court as
Gotta have all of them.
as the song says, breaking my back instead of using my mind. All right? Look at the analogy between plantation work and sportsmanship. You're a paid gladiator. Gladiators were slaves fighting in the Colosseum, fighting amongst each other. And the big boss man is sitting up now in the skybox as opposed to the big house up on the hill watching his slaves run around on the field. In a field, you're working in a farm team. You get it? Farm team. Slaves worked on a farm, and they worked on the field. And the white man was not on the field, working on the field. He was in the big house, or now sitting up in the skybox, looking at his Negroes. I could use another term to make it even more clear. Running around, breaking their necks, even in college, in the NCAA. Real slaves working for these schools and not getting paid. Georgetown sold 132 of their slaves in 1834 to keep the doors open. And black people still running over to Georgetown to play basketball.
And what kind of money are they making?
They ain't making no money playing basketball in the NCAA. They've been working as
How about
slaves.
in-
They
And the
get-
coaches
in
are making
football?
over $1 million a year.
Yeah, Officer Graham
Well,
is
that's
so,
what you need to change.
But Officer Graham is so right. I
Don't
feel
get me
you're
don't get
right.
me started on
Keep
this stuff.
going.
All right, because we're not
What
thinking.
sport did you do?
I ran track.
What kind of money can you make running?
I wasn't doing that. I wasn't trying to be a professional athlete.
All right.
I was reading books. My mother said, you got nothing to do, go read a book, which is what we did. We didn't spend our time
And you
on,
spent
we
20
didn't have
years
Facebook.
being doing what?
Yeah. Doing what?
A
I spent
policeman.
20 years as a police officer helping our people in this city because I had no intentions of being a police officer. But as a result of it, I was able to send police officers to prison for what they were doing to people. I
And
was
you
able
were
to
one-
go
you
to
were
various
one of a
places
kind.
to learn my
What about all
craft.
the crooked cops around?
I sent a PBA delegate to prison. I sent a black cop to prison for raping a 15-year-old child. I don't give a flying fig if you're white, black, whatever you are. If you're scum, you're scum. Period. All right? When I finished my career, even now, with the experience I got, I still lecture in colleges. I lecture with
Back in the day,
law
in the
students at
60s.
American University, Fordham University, Hofstra, to get them to think about what law is about.
Well, I
And as
remember
an
a time
attorney,
when,
what their dedication should be and not to the money.
I remember during the time of the 60s, and the cops were considered toms. Anybody ever call you a tom?
Yeah, I
because you were a
told the
cop?
brother, if you got a job that can pay me $65,000 or $70,000, approach me. I'll take the spot.
So maybe people are playing football to make money today. They're not
The
slaves.
importance No, they're not. Understand something.
Professional football.
You don't need a
is
football
an art.
player, but you do need a police officer.
Well,
you need a doctor.
brain
You
to
need
play
a teacher.
football. You need a brain to play football.
Winston, we can move above that level.
We can do everything.
And as a matter of fact, when this brother Colin Kaepernick took a knee, why did the other Negroes stand with him on that issue? When the white man said, oh, what are we going to have now? The inmates are taking over the jail? Anybody on any team listening to that should have had something to say about a white man talking about you like you're an inmate in a jail.
Can I add something to what you're saying?
And what
officer?
happened to that owner?
What happened to him?
They kicked him out.
But
Did he lose
Colin
his franchise?
But Colin Kaepernick isn't playing football
He's not playing.
still.
Well, that's the problem.
You see, and that's the problem. They don't understand the power they have because they've been conditioned. You think because you make money that you've made it, while your people are going down the tubes.
But the thing is, Officer Graham, and I absolutely agree with
I
you.
don't see how you can.
But I think what it is like we go into career paths a lot of the time, and we go in there to make money, but we don't go into a career path to what Officer Graham is talking about to become free. So we don't think about investments. We don't think about thinking about housing. We don't think about things from an investor mindset. We think about things from a very well-paid employee mindset. And a lot of times people of color, that's what caused us to remain silent. We're looking at a lot of, like, I look at, for example, like Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali was an athlete, but he was so much more than an athlete because he was willing to give it all up for freedom. I look at, even the Dave Chappelle says some really controversial things that I might not agree with everything, but he is able to have a discussion about gender relations and how it connects to racial issues because he is financially free. So I think we need to look at these issues from the point of like, listen, how can I maneuver this capital to literally not have to listen and be designated and directed by society? How can I go into that place where I'm not on the field, but I'm in the skybox? So I like what Officer Graham is saying. I think what happens, the way we get there, is through the hard work of education. We have to think to ourselves like, hey, because look, it's not just about race, because you have white people that are slaves, who are attorneys, who acquire massive amounts of student loan debt, and they have to work till the day they're dead to pay this thing off, who can't even spend time with their children, because we're falling into this matrix of society that's telling us we have to get more, we have to buy this car, we have to be with this woman, we have to, and then we're just bogged down because we're identifying with our careers, because our careers will keep the lights on. How can we think about things from an investor mindset, a big business mindset, where we can think about things like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, to expand our consciousness, to not fear speaking out, because if we speak out, we're going to end up without a job. That's not a life, man. In my opinion.
See, now you just gave us the answers right there. See, because of your youthful mind, and you see it from different avenues.
But I don't.
Graham and I were talking about back in the day.
But I think
when it was really hard on black people, when people related to welfare, because that was all they could get.
But
it was a hustle.
But Mr. Gilchrist,
see,
look
black
at
people in their mindset always have a hustle.
But and that's the thing. You said the word hustle before, and it was so interesting because it was a negative connotation.
No, it's not
But-
a negative
no,
thing.
I'm sorry, okay.
You don't have an honest hustle.
Yeah.
I always had an honest hustle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
From
I
the
think,
age of 11,
yeah, and I
I
think.
had a hustle.
But look at. But
My
like,
hustle was newspapers. Every Friday, I go grab 100 newspapers
Yeah.
from 42nd Street. By the time I got on the A train in 145th Street, where I lived, and down, I used to pick it up before the paper was out at 7 o'clock.
Right.
But guess who had
On
the
a
same?
Friday, there were light papers, and by the time, this is 1950,
Yeah.
52.
But guess who had the same hustle as you?
Nobody.
Warren
Nobody
Buffett.
in my name.
Warren Buffett had the
Yeah.
same hustle as you. You know what I'm saying? Because and the thing was that we don't acknowledge with the paper boys is that they chose their own hours.
Yes, right.
They got their own resources. They had to make
had their own
connections.
route.
They
They
had their
developed
own
the route.
route. you know,
And it was honest.
And it was honest. And the thing is, we can have, I think, as young people, because I don't think my mindset is shared by a lot of young people, because if that was the case, we wouldn't have billions of dollars of student loan debt. It's not shared by most young people. What is shared is this notion of the American dream, which is get an education, go to school, take a lot of money out, and then work for a firm. Why can't we own the firm? Why can't we think about innovating things in a new way? Why can't we think about acquiring property? We're depending on the government
Black
to
people
give
don't
people
trust
affordable
each
housing. No, it's not just that. I think it's that people don't have the information.
Don't you find
and
that to be true?
What I find is that people don't have information, and
Right.
because they don't have the information, they don't have the imagination to see what is possible.
Right, and the access. That's why our kids need to be taken out of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
There's nothing in the
that's-
neighborhood.
that's-
I tell students, no matter where I am, I tell them, when you graduate, get out of here. New York is a dump. Get out of New York. It's a dump. It's a hellhole.
Oh, it
My nephew, it depends on where you're living.
is. That's right.
New York is a dump. And you know New York, when we were kids, and New York today is a dump. Now, my nephew,
I didn't live in a dump. I
the
was
city
born and
overall
raised in
really
Harlem.
is not what it used to be.
No,
Now,
Nothing's like
Lennon,
it
my
used to be.
nephew, went to law school, was working at a law firm, like you said, working long hours. You know,
Yeah.
he wasn't seeing his kids. He said, he called me up. He says, Uncle Graham, I gotta quit this job. I said, what are you gonna do? He says, I don't know, but I'm not seeing my children. I'm not seeing my son walk the first steps. He says, I'm missing everything.
Yeah. Wow.
He had his resignation in his pocket. He went in the next day, and the head of the law firm said to him, Lennon, what are you doing for lunch? He said, well, nothing in particular. He says, I want to have lunch with you. What? He's like, where's this coming from? They go to lunch. He says, we gave you all the garbage cases
yeah,
intentionally.
right.
They only had a
Yeah,
handful of black people in the firm, but the white people are handling the good cases. He said, every piece of crap we gave you, you won the case.
Yeah.
He said, you're a serious worker. He said, I want to ask you something. Would you consider becoming a partner in the firm? This firm's been around for over 55 years, never had a black partner. He calls me after lunch and he tells me this scenario. I said, you got the resignation? He says, it's still in my pocket. I said, good. Now, you stay there 2 to 3 years as a partner. This is down on Wall Street and
Yeah.
Broadway.
Yeah.
This enhances your resume and your experience, because now you're not a lawyer working for a firm, you're a partner of the firm.
Exactly.
And you're going to see a different perspective of lawyering that the people working on the level that you're on are not going to know. Banking, you walk into a bank, go to your bank and ask them about midterm notes, bank guaranteed notes, or private profit sharing programs. They'll tell you, what are you talking about?
Right.
Because they're not on that level. They don't know the first thing about it. There are programs out here where you could take your money, these athletes could take collectively, put together $100 million amongst themselves, and put that money into what is called a profit placement program, and make 90% on their money every week.
don't think
That's
about-
Why don't
$90
you-
million
why don't you-
a week, but they don't know about it.
Why don't you gather up that idea and come up with a presentation?
We can definitely talk about it. I mean, like
Let's do exactly that.
Yeah, we have so when we're-
Teach these football slaves how to make some money.
See, but here's the thing with Lennon.
yeah, okay, yeah, please.
So Lennon stayed either two to 3 years,
Yeah.
and he and another brother, they opened their own law firm. They're on 34th Street across from Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
They're
Well, I
handling
think,
cases in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and California. And he's handled cases for some well-known entertainers and won all the cases. All right? But the thing is, you've got to master your craft, boys and girls. You have to master your craft. No one's giving you anything. You have to get out there, learn it from front to back, and then go do it yourself. I don't care what IBM is paying people. People think, I got a job with so-and-so, and they pay me $100,000. If
But
they're
do you
paying
own it?
$100,000,
Yeah.
you're worth $400,000.
And Officer Graham, like, I think you're not even discussing how you maneuvered your position as a police officer to become a speaker and monetizing your talent to present, right? People aren't thinking like that. They're out the force. You literally monetized your voice. you created your own vocal cord as an asset. So what Mr. Gilchrist is doing as a show, it's a way to take your gift. This is what I love about capitalism. This is why I like I love. So my thing
good
is,
things.
if you look at it from, because you can look at capitalism from a position of like, oh, we're just manipulating, take from people, and I think that's a pretty bad form of business, and you wouldn't live long in business if you think like that.
It's greed and selfishness.
But if you think about it from position of a servant, I think that's how the best companies work. I mean, you got like the social activists would be some of the best entrepreneurs in the world because they would have the urge to want to make a difference.
We have a chance here.
Yeah.
We take on all the problems of the world here on a talk show.
Yeah.
Now, we give our different opinions, but opinions are like backsides.
Everybody
Everybody's
has,
got one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And fairness, I think, is the mainstay of my existence.
Yeah.
I believe in being fair. That's one thing my father taught me when I was a kid. He said, just try and be fair.
Yeah.
Be fair with people. Now, if you take that principle right there and just try and be fair to everybody you meet until they go the wrong way, then that's when you come out with the anger and the grit. I mean, don't kill them, but, teach them a lesson or something. But we don't have a sense of fair play amongst ourselves. We're always trying to get over on each other. We're always poking at each other or joking with each other.
But
That's why I say I don't find too many black people I trust enough to invest in. To say, hey, I loaned a guy $20. I'll give it back to you on Tuesday, and I never got my money, and I was harassed.
But Mr. Gilchrist, I think.
But
I
that's
think,
normal
but
in the black world.
But I don't
I'm talking
feel
about
like
my
that.
personal experience.
Oh, okay. I feel you.
I'm talking about my personal
Yeah,
experience.
I feel you.
I've never been around too many black people I trust enough to invest my money in. I mean, to go in partnership on anything. And that's what our problem is, I think.
And I want to say to Mr. Gilchrist, and I don't want to say it from a place of judgment. I want to say it from a place of like love, and I heard you on that. But that's what the issue is with a lot of venture capital firms, and why there's not a lot of black entrepreneurs because of that mindset towards us. And I remember my mentor. He was an Indian man in Atlanta, and he said to me, Julian, when you think to yourself somebody is suspicious, when you have that mindset like this guy's gonna get over on me, you produce what you imagine.
Yeah.
And I really just try to take it by a case basis because there are a lot of black people that I want to invest in, just like there are a lot of human beings of all colors and shades I want, but especially black people because we don't get the opportunity. And I also think because I went to an HBCU, shout out to Morehouse, I saw a lot of brothers that were worthy of the investment. And so I just think that, to young people, to anyone, like, we just got to remember this is delayed gratification. And just to, as Officer Graham said, hone in on your skills to what you said, have that positive mindset. And, because we can do so much. We don't have to just go and be lawyers or doctors. We can go into real estate. We can go into marketing.
Yeah, anything.
I mean, like, there's so many different ways to create. So my thing is, how do we go from this becoming a hustle into a career?
Make it a good hustle.
Can I give you one easy one?
Yeah.
Because I don't believe everybody needs to go to college. That's nonsense.
No,
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
Vocational
But
schools should
everybody
be-
needs to learn. And
Business.
with a cell phone. You remember we were kids.
Exactly.
Not you. When we were kids, we had to go to the library. And
What is the library?
You had to go to the catalog,
Yeah.
the Dewey Decimal System, and look up the book, and then you had to know where to go to find that book in all the racks.
Oh, man.
They don't have to do that anymore.
No.
They have this, but they're doing stupid stuff.
No,
Facebook,
they're doing a lot of good stuff.
TikTok, and all that. But here's the
It
thing.
has everything.
I'm going to give everybody a quick one. In the spring, start putting some money away now for the spring. This is an easy one. You can start your own business. I told this to some guys in Bed-Stuy. Harlem, the residential buildings have ironwork on them.
Oh, God, don't bring that one up.
I'm going to bring it up because it's an easy one and no one
You
picks
get
up.
shot.
No.
Doing somebody's
You get the elder of
today,
the block, paint the iron railings for them.
and you never get a dime.
Yes, you're doing that first one for free. That's your
People
advertisement.
aren't honest like they
It's your
used to be.
advertisement. You do
That's-
the elder of the block for
that's-
free.
That's a
Winston.
job for the 50s.
That's not for the 50s because raggedy-looking property is raggedy-looking property.
And
You
if
brighten
they
the
said-
block by repainting all the ironwork, painted for that
And
old
everybody
person
there
and
think you-
all the other
You get
people on the
referrals.
block. Thank you.
If
They
you
see
catch
you
somebody-
doing your work. The working people drive by at 7 in the morning. If you're serious, you're out there at 7. They're going to work. They see you. And then when they see the finished product, oh, hey, brother, beep, beep. Can I
Yeah.
get your card? Can you do
Exactly.
mine? Yeah, $500.
Yeah.
You don't need to go and get a PhD. You can start your own business with some paint, a black high gloss enamel.
True.
You get some lacquer to mix in there so it shines like an automobile, some navel jelly, and some red primer
I'm
paint,
afraid
and some
in Harlem,
epoxy to fill in the holes where the rust is.
You
and you got
try
your own
that in
business.
Harlem, and I think somebody will think you're up to something.
No,
more
they
than
don't
that.
want paint.
But you know who's gonna do that? The white people
Yeah.
are gonna come into Harlem and do,
That's right.
and then they're
That's
gonna
right.
hire some undocumented people to do the work, and they're gonna pay them. And while,
see?
but
There
that's
ain't nobody gonna
it's
give you
right.
a dime after it's already done.
You're doing the
No,
first one
the
for
first
free.
is free.
That's for an
And then you
elder
get
in the
referrals.
block.
Everybody
You
else
do
is
it
gonna
for,
say, "Hey, come do mine, and I'll give you $500."
Okay, we take that same energy to
Winston,
run for office.
you just
Not
don't.
We
in
run
Harlem,
for
I
office with
know.
that energy. Why can't we make a business with that
You
same
just
energy?
don't.
Not.
That's a great idea, man.
Great
Can someone do
idea.
that?
All right, call in the studio next week if
And
you
you-
want to do it. The first person to call, I'll help you set the business up for next spring.
And if you don't get shot,
Oh, come on, Mr.
You gonna
Gilchrist.
Messing with
a
somebody's
painter
pro-
is going to get shot.
Every business has a
See, you're
risk.
talking bad about Harlem now.
yeah, I
Oh,
live in
you see?
Harlem. I live in Harlem. I'm born and raised in Harlem. I know a lot about Harlem.
Okay, so are you comfortable? Like, let's say that, let's say someone else run for office. Would you be fine with a bunch of people knocking on doors to get people registered to vote?
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you be fine with them doing a business the same way? Saying, this is my business, I would want to help. Why can't they do it the same
Because
energy?
I don't trust people walking into my house.
But
They're not
Asking
coming
me-
in your house. They're
asking
painting
me
the
for money.
railing outside your house.
I don't need it. I'll get somebody I know.
okay, that's
here
you.
you go. Here you
Oh,
go.
okay, so that's how you
That's
get
has
referral.
no
That's what a
trust.
referral
He
is.
has
Most
no
people in
trust.
their right mind
Okay, people
don't
in their
take a
right mind.
stranger and say,
But you know why, Mr.
You
Gil?
know?
That's a great point, and that's only why only 1% of this country is worth
Don't
that much money.
invest in another human
and we
being.
only have a minute to go. Is that what you're standing up there for? Tell me it's a minute. I got the clock here.
I'm so happy with Eric Adams. I had a call with him. He was
Yeah.
great. Awesome human
Well,
being.
you saw by these roll-ins that we've got a real brother, you know? And I'll give him any job he has to
He'll paint
do
your
for me.
railings.
Now watch what he does. Now watch what Eric does. Now you can see he's a man of God. And with that, the God in me loves the God in you. And stay tuned for more entertaining.
Entertain.
And I'm not a slave either. Power to the people. And I think we should get the football players to buy their own team. That's what we should do.
Yeah, but
God be with you.
someone got to want to sell it to him.
No,
No, you can do an
demand it.
expansion team.
can?
Demand it.
Get an expansion
wow.
team.
Yeah.
Put it. You see, when Jackie signed that contract with Branch Rickey, that was the end of the Negro Leagues. You had black men that owned baseball stadiums, owned the teams and owned the stadiums, and this is where we lost it. All right, we had our own stuff, and we walked away from our stuff to do their stuff. All right, we keep doing that. We keep walking away from our ice to get somebody else's ice.
You need to lead the charge.
Yes.
On recruiting all some of
Martin
these
Luther
people.
Graham.
See how many people you get.
Martin Luther Graham.
You should
Listen,
start that team.
the numbers don't
doing
count.
houses with
The
the
numbers don't
lacquer.
count. You know
Buy
why?
the
Because I'm
paint
not
and
itching
get a
to
bunch
scratch
of
it,
guys
trying to
go
figure it out.
Grab, do it on a large scale.
I tell you, I'm gonna paint some fences in Harlem. Watch some.
Wait,
some
are we still
I'll
on?
give you the block to
Oh,
do
we,
it.
oh, we are.
I'll show
okay,
you
I'm
what
scared. I'm
Harlem's
like,
about.
this is
They'll be shooting at you.
They're not gonna be shooting at painters.
Power at the people.
That's a great idea, Scram. Great idea.
It's easy. I told the brothers
could
2
do
years
that
ago.
years
I said,
ago,
you're
but you
spending.
can't do that
This was
today.
2 years ago. I said, you're
You
drinking
go to
stupid
Harlem and
liquor.
start painting, you wind up the
smoking
owner as a white
cigarettes.
person.
But you know what though?
You're
We do-
financing the
Yeah.
white people to get cancer. What are you doing?
Yeah.
What do you keep giving your money away to the people
That's
that
true.
hate you.
And you don't invest it.
And then you talk about, oh, the white man. It's not the white man. The problem is not him. It's you. Because he's not stealing your money. You're giving him your money.
Yeah.
And then you're complaining that
It's
you
true.
don't have anything.
It's true. It's true.
All right? So let's get off of that pity pulpit. It's BS.
Yeah, especially with the internet, man. It's such an equalizer. We can't really say that stuff.
Well, I don't really see the brothers playing football and
If we
selling
can,
drugs.
you know, my thing is this, right? if
That
you,
was the only way you can make some money. Back in the 80s.
But you know, we do so many dangerous jobs. Like you have some guys doing construction, and they're on like these scaffolds on the. I mean, that type of job Officer Graham is just talking about. And you create, it sounds relatively safe to the work that we do. You know.
But you don't have enough